Do you like movies and games also? Listen, so much more they all know. Vyse, Pyro, Lotus, and friends, welcome to Corrective Consciousness.
Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 63, the podcast about our lives and love of pop culture. I am your host, VyseTheBold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And PyroJackFrost, back again from a bit of a hiatus.
Whoa!
Oh, man. So, what were you doing? Playing Idolmaster, or what?
I was actually in prison for the past 3 weeks.
Oh, man. The Kim Jong-illest.
No, I was actually in Japan. That's going to be a
the
conversation for a later time in the week.
The name of the prison is Japan.
Yes.
It's very confusing.
Wait, what? Ready? Like, you just spoiled everything that I was going to talk about.
Sorry, let's restart the podcast.
It's a Kurt Russell movie, Escape from Japan. There's just too many weeboos, and he needs to get out of there.
Escape from Japan,
yeah, so
not John Carpenter's best movie.
I was on a nice vacation, so surprisingly, I don't have much to talk about, but I'll start, I guess.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Why don't we
usually
start us
with
off?
this
That way they can get used to your croon again.
That's a word that I don't know.
Sultry croon.
It doesn't even really... I don't even know how well it applies. You're not crooning, so... I don't know.
It's another word for singing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a kind of singing.
So the first thing I want to talk about is the game that I actually played the most of, I would say, between the last time I was on and now. And that's a mobile game, a phone game. Mm-hmm. As some people who've been listening since the beginning know, that I play a lot of phone games, and they're usually the longer ones that you play with for a while, and then I'll promptly delete them when I've done all the easy stuff and free stuff. So the current in the long list of those is actually Granblue Fantasy, which has been around for a long time. To sum it up a little bit, the reason why I got into it is because the art is done by one of the same artists that did Final Fantasy Tactics. Okay. And it's actually like an RPG, and although it does have the usual gacha mechanics.
Is it a Japanese RPG?
Yes, it's Japanese.
Okay. The name sounds very, like, Square
Mr. Ryu. Mr. Ryu used to play it a lot.
Okay.
He still does play it a little bit.
Is it made by, like, a company that we would recognize?
Probably not. Games. This is like one of their few games.
Oh.
They release some games for consoles, but I don't know exactly what they are. But I will say that I'm like in love with Granblue Fantasy now. It might just be the initial love. I'll talk more about it in the Japan trip, because that's where you're really going to see how obsessed I've gotten over it. But the general idea is you get characters, however you summon them, the usual randomization of who you get, with the rarity like how powerful they are depends on their rarity. And there's also equipment that you can equip onto your character, and summons you can get. So there's lots of stuff involved. But the basic idea is that you have a team of 4, and every character has an element, and the enemies you fight have an element, and there's a circle so you want to have fire people in your party when you're fighting against earth people or something like that, because they do more damage and they take less damage. But other than that, mainly it's just a normal gacha. But it's nice because while the story is very cliche, there's actually, I feel, more story in this game than most mobile games.
Okay.
So what is the the battle system like? Is it a normal like RPG turn-based system, or what's it like? Kind
of. So like I said, you have 4 people in your party, and some of them have special abilities. And there's summons that you can do when they've had enough charge time. You can always use your quote-unquote friend summon right away. So whenever you go into battle, you can pick a friend, and you get to use their summon for free. But every other summon, you require like 6-turn charge-up time, basically. So casting your character's special abilities don't require any actions, but they require charge time after you use them. Okay. So let's say I use a character's ability that does damage to an opponent, and then I can't use that again for another 5 turns. Other than that, really all battle is you pressing the attack button, and all 4 characters attack in order, and then the opponent gets to attack you, and then you repeat. So there's not much involved, except that the order of your characters will depend on the order they attack. So that might be important later on. I haven't really determined that.
So can you increase speed for specific characters and stuff like that? That way
no,
it changes the order?
Nope. They always go in the exact order that they're listed.
Okay.
So yeah, switching their order will help you determine that. But really, normal attacks don't have any effect on combat. Their special abilities might, though. Like, your special ability might increase your attack. But as far as I know, attacks themselves don't help anything. The other bonus is as you do damage and get dealt damage, you have a charge bar. And once that's at 100%, when that character attacks, they'll do a special attack. And the number of characters that do their special attack in the same action, there could be a chain. So if I have 2 characters at 100% and I have them use their super attack, so they'll do the super attacks and the other 2 people do the normal attacks, and I'll do a 2-hit chain that'll do extra damage. Or same with all 3, same with all 4. You can hold your charge though, so you can make it so no one uses it until they all have 100%. Like, there's a button that you can click on that says "Do not use your special attack until I tell you to." So
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's somewhat involved, but so I would say it's more involved than like the previous couple of games I played like this, where it's just you basically press the auto attack. Like the game that I played previously to this, I would put on auto attack, leave it on overnight, and grind. Whereas this game, there's really not as much grinding. Like, you have to grind, but the battles are a little bit more. You need to be attentive a little bit more to the battles.
Makes sense.
That's kind of nice. So that's the big game I've been playing, because I've been on the move a lot in Japan, so I can't really play a lot of other things. And then the other thing I want to talk about actually is something I just played this weekend. So there's 2 board games I played this weekend, and I'm going to try to keep them quick because there's not really much to talk about. One is Time Stories. So the cool idea about this is it's a 4-person game, and you play as time agents with some sort of puzzle you're solving, quote unquote. So you go back to a certain time period and you're trying to like solve that game. The first one we played was you went into an insane asylum and we're trying to figure out what was going on there that didn't seem right. And no spoilers, but there are things going on, and you solve them. And you get points depending on how quickly you do it. You basically have 30 actions until you have to reset and start from the beginning, and like you lose everything that you found, but all the information you've gotten you can keep with you.
Gotcha.
And the one that I played this time was kind of like a 1990s zombie sort of case. So here's my 2 cents about these games. They are overall fun. I like the idea behind them, because you all have different characters who have strengths and weaknesses. You're trying to solve this case, let's say, but not that I'm a game designer, but I feel like there's a lot of elements to this game that kind of made it annoying the farther you got into it, because at least this one railroaded you. Like, there's only one way you can go to actually solve the case. Plus, going into the end game, if you did not get all the information, there's no way you can like deduce what could possibly be the right answer at the end, and you can't go back and figure it out, which is really annoying because it penalizes you for exploring, but you have to explore everything to make sure you got all the clues.
Yeah.
And that's what I really don't like about this game. And the first one kind of did that too. And I was talking to like the people I was playing with, and like my thoughts about it are, the first half of the game was fun when we were actually exploring and trying to figure stuff out. But as we got farther, it like was falling apart at the seams when we realized there was places we had to go to figure everything out, and there's places that we went to that we didn't have to, but there's no way we would have known not to go there. So we got penalized for trying something we would have known. Like, here's I'm not going to spoil where it was, but there is a location that you go to, and that you have to go to every single part of that location, but the end goal of getting to the end of that location is something you could have done and saved yourself like 10 actions doing something else. And there's no way you would have known. And the only clue that you hear about this location tells you that it makes you think you should go that way. So it's I like the idea, and the game is fun in the first half, but everything after that first half kind of
sounds frustrating.
annoyed me.
Yeah.
I will play, like, as long as everyone else who I played with today is willing to. I would play the next one. There's 2 other expansions to play. As long as we and because the thing is that there's a score at the end. I think that's the annoying part. If it was all based around like you just solving the mystery, it might have been better than some score. Like every reset you do, you get a lower baseline points, and then you get points added on to you for how much time you have left. And it's kind of like if you don't do it right the first 2 times, you kind of screwed yourself. So
makes sense.
So I will try it again. Like I said, maybe they improve upon it, maybe they don't. But if I keep this in mind going into next time and say like I'm gonna have fun, try to solve the mystery, I don't care what points we get, then that's different. The next game we played was actually, I didn't win, but it was still really fun. So it's called Gloom. The basic idea of this, the basic idea of this game is each person has a family that has 5 characters, and the point of this game is to make these people suffer and then kill them.
Jeez.
So you want your characters to have the lowest self-worth as possible before you throw an untimely death on them.
Wait, was this the card game?
Yes.
It's a card game that has like a clear cards.
Were the illustrations like very much like heavy lines, like Edward Gorey kind of art?
Yes.
Am I thinking the right game?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like Never-Ending Nightmares.
Yes. Yeah, and I thought it was cool just because I love alliteration.
Yeah.
And the whole game kind of is about alliteration. Like all the bad things that could happen are like, what was it, mauled by mongooses, or harassed by hornets, or like pestered by preschoolers, something like that. Like I really like that, and I like the idea that you're trying to kill your own characters.
Yeah.
But the other thing I liked is there's some strategy to it. Like the reason why I lost is I wasn't paying complete attention to some other special abilities, but I killed my opponent's last card because I thought she had less points than me. So by killing her last card, that ended the game. So if I did have more points, then I ended the game by killing her person to make me win. So there's a lot of like strategy, and you can also do good things to your opponents. So it's like, hey, they were harassed by hornets, but they were also the talk of the town. So they have positive self-worth now. And you're like, no, I don't want to have positive self-worth. So it was actually really interesting, and I think what I enjoyed the most is the clear cards. So like the things you do previously, some of them show through.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And stick with you. So I really like that. And so this is just the base game, and we didn't play any of the expansions because the person whose house we played at didn't have any of the expansions. But there's like an expansion where you have a house. There's expansions where you might have like pets or animals involved. So there's like, I think there's at least 3 expansions that could add to that, which is pretty cool. So that was this past weekend. The only other 2 things that I want to cover, but really, depending on how long we take this next one, I really don't want to, I will stop there. But so for anyone who doesn't know, Danganronpa V3 comes out on Tuesday this week.
I'm pretty excited about that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited. I know that Lotus Prince probably is too, but we still have to finish.
I am in theory, yeah.
And I will keep up the Danganronpa thing of playing it before we record then, because I'm not going to wait until we record.
Oh, fair enough, yeah. Otherwise, we'll be waiting for a long time.
But we do still need to come up with times that we can meet up and finish recording. I forgot what my voice has sounded like on 2.
Yeah, we're so barely into it, it might even pay to start over.
Maybe. So that comes out. So really, I've just been like twiddling my thumbs on my commute because I don't want to start a new game and to know that I won't finish any of the Final Fantasies I've started until then. So I didn't want to really continue them. So I've been playing Downwell some more. I've been kind of improving my Downwell runs a little bit. And the other game I've been playing, because it was $3 on PSN and I really wanted to play it, is Crypta the Necrodancer.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a really fun game. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a roguelike rhythm game. It's fun, but it can be kind of annoying later on, like the farther you get, because the enemies aren't cheap, but like if you don't have perfect rhythm, it seems like really stacked against you. and it's hard to like complete runs once you get farther into the game if you don't have really good rhythm and or understand the mechanics of the game very well. So, like, the thing about, I feel, most roguelikes is even if you are horrible at the game, you can still slowly get through it.
Yeah.
This one, I don't think you can possibly beat the game unless, no matter how bad you are at rhythm games. So, it's kind of a knock against it, but overall it is still a fun game.
You know what I found cool about that game is they kind of advertised that a fun way to play it might be with a DDR mat.
Oh, wow.
Have you considered checking that out?
I thought about it, but since I usually played on the subway, I don't think the people around me want me to whip out a DDR
fine.
mat.
Bring it along with you.
What are you playing it on?
The Vita.
The Vita. I didn't realize it was for the Vita. Okay.
Yeah, it was cross-buy, so I have it on Vita and PS4.
Okay.
And cross-save, I think, too. So, yeah, I got it right before. I was actually really lucky because I've been wanting to play it. And right before I left for my trip, it was at $3 on the PSN store. Nice. So I picked it up and played that for a good while on the plane.
Oh, you know, I don't know. I don't know if you've beaten the game or gotten through a round or however it works for Crypt of the Necrodancer or what. But, you know, every once in a while on these podcasts, I like to bring up the Games Done Quick speedruns if I can. But there was one, I forgot what year it was, but somebody actually completed, like, on the stream, Crypt of the Necrodancer, I think on the hardest difficulty settings that were like theoretically impossible to beat. You know, it's kind of like how the Five Nights at Freddy's like super difficult setting wasn't really meant to be beaten, but people have beaten them. It was pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah, it's really cool, especially hearing that. Considering my playing ability, that sounds really, really awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah.
I might like to see Old Man Stompy take a
gander at it.
Yeah.
Maybe we can even like set up a if he wants to a kind of like a let's play scenario for him to play it on a pad. I think that would be kind of neat, but we'll have to see if he agrees to that. But I think he would if we had the time.
It's been a pretty fun few weeks playing mobile games, board games, Vita games until Danganronpa, and that's been about the past 3 weeks for me. So Lotus Prince. Oh,
wait,
yes.
one quick.
No. He said it's my turn.
I am the host.
I make the whoosh
noises. Wow. He's throwing his.
I am pulling rank.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you hosted on your channel, and you can veto me if you like, but
whatever.
How does Danganronpa V3 relate to the third season of the anime? Because I don't understand.
Let me sum this up for you.
I'm supposed to watch, aka play these games. Like, what is the order in which I'm supposed to experience this?
So here's the easy answer, without spoiling things. So you play the first game.
Okay.
You play Despair Girls, which takes place between
even though
1
it
and
came
2.
out after the second game.
It takes place during the second game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but
it just came out after.
Yeah, there's nothing that goes on during, as far as I know, during Despair Girls that'll spoil anything for 2.
Yeah, because that just came out on Steam, so like a lot more people can play it now.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure it's 1, then Despair Girls, then 2.
Okay.
And then 3, which is the anime, is both a prequel for 2, because that makes sense once you've beaten 2, and a sequel to 2. Because basically the way it worked was it ran for 13 weeks, twice a week. On Monday, they released the the Hope side, which was I believe, don't get me wrong, was pre-2, and the Despair side, which was post-2.
Okay.
And that was on Thursday, the Despair side, or vice versa, something like that. There was one that was before 2, one that was after 2, and they both released once a week. So by watching all of 3, so you don't watch 3 until you've at least beaten 2, because it'll spoil the
end of 2.
The end of 2, and also it ends the story as well.
Okay.
But what I would say to do, actually, Yeah, what I would say to how I would say to do it is to play 1, then Despair Girls, then 2, then watch the Hope side or whatever one comes before 2 to kind of explain how 2 happened, and then watch 3 to wrap it up. V3, as far as I know, is like the same universe and the same like idea, but so far off that you can play 3 and not having played any of the other games.
Okay.
It's not actually 3. Like V3 is like a pun about they use 3 because it is a third game, but it's not third in the story. So
Okay.
that's the brief idea of how those go.
All
I
right.
see. Okay, well, Lotus, you may proceed.
Oh, may I? All right, here we
you
go.
may.
Yay.
Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo.
All right, so first of all, a couple quick things I can get through. Undertale has been going, the Let's Play, but now it's starting to be available for the general viewing public. Hooray! So anybody can get in on the Undertale Let's Play bandwagon and see how Old Man Stompy Mitzi Mitz and I get through the game. It's pretty radical. This is also a quickie, but my local library had a book sale this past weekend, and it's called a book sale, but they also sometimes have like DVDs and like cassette tapes of music and CDs and stuff like that. They tried not to really do the cassette tapes, but CDs and stuff. But they usually don't really do many games except for maybe like stuff you find at Goodwill, like PSP and Xbox 360 games or whatever. But randomly I saw Mortal Kombat and Thunder Force 2 for the Sega Genesis.
Whoa, wow.
In box.
Wow.
I was like, okay.
Thunder Force 2 is a good game. Quite a good game.
Yeah, that one's rather interesting. So I picked them up. Okay. I beat Dark Souls. Super hyped about that.
The first one, right?
The first one.
Okay.
For a Let's Play. I've already
Did you
beaten it.
play it on PS3 or did you play it on PC? I forget.
PS3.
Okay.
I'm gonna go console with the Dark Souls games. So yeah, beat that with the DLC and everything. Now I actually have it on camera, which is quite satisfying. And I think I might have mentioned this last time, but I said that Skies of Arcadia was the longest Let's Play I ever did at 52 installments. Dark Souls is close. Dark Souls is it's 48. I did not think it would be anywhere nearly that long. Demon Souls was nowhere nearly that long. So I was like, Dark Souls ought to be about similar. Nope. Like there's a lot more going on with Dark Souls. I had no idea. It's just a bigger game. I know that the worlds connect to each other, so you can walk anywhere, and it's literally a bigger world. But still, that really threw me. But it was cool. I went to the optional bosses and stuff like that, and tried to show off as much of the game as I could. And I think I mostly did a really good job.
Good for you.
Yay! For real, it was a blast going through that game again. Vyse, I think, will mention a bit more of this, but I saw him on Saturday. We met up at a store in Pennsylvania, Classic Game Junkie. It's a really good store for just pretty much most of your retro gaming needs. They got a lot of stuff, and it's like a really well put together store, and the people who run it are really cool. I mean, I just kind of browsed around. Vyse picked up more than I did. I just ended up picking up Eternal Ring for the PS2 because it's a From Software game, and I just want to see what other weirdness From Software has put out.
Do you have the Otogi games? Those are
That's From Software?
Yeah, both of them.
No.
That's they're games. Actually, so is Metal Wolf Chaos. That's
a riot.
Yeah. They have quite a history. I mean, if you're gonna collect games from them, they have tons of games. Like they kind of are an offbeat publisher. I mean, they only recently became mainstream. They kind of made a lot of games that were not fun to play, but were interesting.
Well, with From Software, I really want to go for the games that are like kind of related, like the Souls,
Shadow Tower. And
the Souls games, the Kingsfield, Shadow Tower, kind of Eternal Ring, maybe Lost Kingdoms. That's a card based one. I don't know if I really want to go deep into that one, but maybe Lost Kingdoms. But I don't really care about Armored Core or Jumping Flash or whatever.
Armored Core is good though.
And so is Jumping Flash. Jumping Flash is like one of my favorite series. I love that series. I wish they would make another one of those games. It would be a lot of fun.
How many are there? 2?
There are 3.
Three?
Well, there's 1 and 2 and a Japanese 3.
Okay. And I also want to look into the Echo Knight
only.
games. I actually have both American releases, and there's a fan translation for 2, so that ought to cover that, I think, which is pretty cool. But that was basically my experience at Classic Game Junkie. I had gone there for a different reason. I had handed in my GameCube on the same day that I'd handed in my N64 to try to get an HDMI mod. So at this point, it's been a couple months, but there's only one person there who's really capable of doing the mods, and a lot of people come to him with requests. So I got my N64 relatively quickly, like relatively speaking, but still waiting for the GameCube.
I really want my N64 modded just like you got yours. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So I'm still waiting for the GameCube mod. And I wanted to see if he could mod my Xbox, not for HDMI, but something else. And the guy said he probably could, but because the process is a pain in the ass and because the wait is already pretty intense, I think that I didn't actually get a price, but he did say that it would probably be more costly than, like, it would probably be worth for me to, like, just drop that amount of money right there. So I held off on it. Only 2 other things to mention. One is very recently I live streamed for the Patreon followers Streets of Rage, the first
Which
one,
you labeled as Sega CD for some reason.
because I played it on the Sega CD and not the Genesis.
Oh, the original Sega CD?
Yeah.
The original Streets of Rage? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Ha, you're trying to be a smartass.
Yeah. Streets of Rage on the Sega CD. It was
Did you
on
play
that.
Golden Axe that's not as good as regular Golden Axe as well?
The gameplay's just as good, but the songs like clearly stop and then restart, like when they loop. It's pretty bad.
Well, also there's no 2-player mode, which is ridiculous.
But no, Streets of Rage, I think Streets of Rage does support 2-player on the CD.
Yeah, there's no problem with that.
But yeah, Streets of Rage on the CD is, I think, only available on a compilation disc that has Revenge of Shinobi, Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, and Columns. All right.
Yeah, when I was a kid, that's actually how I experienced those games. I never had... We didn't have the cartridge version of Streets of Rage 1.
Oh, I experienced Streets of Rage 1 on my neighbor's 6-pack cartridge.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my brother was the one who had like bought most of the games because he had money and I didn't. He was really into Sega at the time. Like he used to buy the systems as soon as they came out. Like we had a Sega CD right when it came out, and it came with that compilation. It came with a Sherlock Holmes game.
Yep, that's in the same box.
Yeah, and it came with Soul Feast, and also
Feast.
it also came with a bunch of other like interactive like music and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So just like stuff that's kind of useless nowadays, but like it's just one of those things that was a novelty at the time, at least.
Yeah.
And,
now, as far as Streets of Rage on the CD is concerned, it's the same as the Genesis
I don't think
game.
there's any differences at all.
There's one. When you kill enemies or when you die, like you hear their screams. That's really more just like they're really brief things, not nearly as involved as Golden Axe, but they sound very digitized, like low quality audio. But on the Sega CD, they sound like clear voices. It actually really threw me off when I first heard them on the Sega CD. I was like, there's a high quality version of this? Like the music sounds the same, but the voices are just way, way better. So, okay, there's that. And meanwhile, Streets of Rage 2 on the Genesis, it's, I guess, whatever mistakes they had made on Streets of Rage 1's cartridge, they fixed with those games' voices. That game's voices. That's cool.
I really recommend that version of Soul Feast, by the way, because the cartridge version doesn't have the like anime-esque intros, and those anime-esque intros are a lot of fun. They're like of the pilots like getting their gear on, ready to go.
Yeah,
and fly.
I love that stuff.
It's awesome. Awesome, iconic like. Early 90s, late 80s anime kind of stuff, which is always the best, because it's before anime got stupid.
Now, the last thing I'll mention is something I've been working on for a few days, and I was happy to really follow through with this. But I had mentioned, I think last week, that I plugged in my Wii U for the first time since having bought it 2 years ago. And what I had wanted to do was, I had gotten a Patreon request to Let's Play the Wii U Fatal Frame game, which would therefore be the game that I do after Undertale. And I've already made my grievances about the Fatal Frame situation clear here. You know, America did not get a physical copy of that game, but Europe did. So I actually pre-ordered the collector's edition of the European game, even though I couldn't play it, because I was like, they're going to find a way to mod the Wii and make it region-free eventually. So, about that. When I had bought the Wii U, it was at firmware version 5.3.2. And there were some mods you can do with that, but everyone else, if you Google, like, everyone else had moved on to what was then the most recent firmware, which was 5.5.1, and that's where the mod stuff really started getting into gear, and you could do more and more things. The problem is, like, a year and a half later, like, I think into the Switch's lifetime, Nintendo updated the Wii U to 5.5.2, and this killed a lot of the mods. So here I had a bit of a problem, because I'm at 5.3.2, and I want 5.5.1, but, I mean, you know how system updates work on consoles. You can't go one step at a time. Like, you have to update to the current version. So I was like, am I going to have to settle for whatever is available to me at this early stage of the system? But then I found on a forum, luckily for me, Nintendo handles things with the Wii U the same way it does for the original Wii, which is you can go ahead and system update in the system's options menu, or like if you try going to the Nintendo eShop, it'll be like, hey man, you need to update. So there's that, but some games come with firmware updates on them, right?
Sure.
Like, you know when you put like Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and it's like, wait a minute now, we got an update coming. So there are several games, including Breath of the Wild, which I have, where it'll give me the then most recent update, which was 5.5.1. So I brought my system up to the latest workable stage without having to go to the internet and download to the current stage. So I put in Breath of the Wild, updated my firmware, 5.5.1, I'm good. So what I was able to do, the bad news is I was not able to run the game off of the disc, even with what I thought would make the system kind of region free. But the good news is that I was able to go to the homebrew channel, put the disc in my system, and dump the contents of the disc onto an SD card. And then, from the SD card, use a different homebrew program to install the game to my system. So on my home menu, I have Project Zero, Maiden of Black Water. And that took a while. That took like a couple of hours just to wait for it to happen. So by the time it did, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to bed. So I came back the next night, and I turn on my system, I see Project Zero. I'm like, yeah, because it was refusing to run for my disc, but now I got the program right there. But then something I've never seen before happened. I guess Nintendo's even more anal in this regard about this thing than Sony and the others, but I went to launch just the program for my home menu, and it's like, I'm sorry, this is like a foreign program. I'm like, are you goddamn kidding me? Like, it's on my system. But the good news is all I really have to do is once you turn off your system and turn it back on again, it kind of resets like your region. So once I went to the homebrew menu and basically turned on the thing that tricks the system, then I was able to run the program. So
there you go.
Yeah, so I actually recorded 4 installments of Project Zero Maiden of Black Water, which was pretty rad. I will say one thing about this game, though. As mad as I am that we never got it on store shelves, I don't know what the situation is with other countries, what their game stores are like, but in America, GameStop is not the only place to get video games, but as far as physical stores are concerned, it's like the Walmart of video games. Like, it's kind of like one of your few options. And in some cases, people's only option. And they're everywhere.
Well, there's Walmarts and Targets and Best Buys.
Yeah, and Toys R Us.
Toys R Us.
There are other
Toys
options,
R Us is...
But as far as actually buying
dying.
video games...
Yeah.
But as far as actually buying video games off the shelf is concerned, though, GameStop is kind of where it's at because, like...
Sure.
They drop prices a lot more quickly than other places because they really need to cycle their product, whereas other places might have games that GameStop doesn't, but they kind of sit there and just stay $60 for like months. So you're probably more inclined to go to GameStop anyway, unless there's something you just want to pick up right now. So like GameStop really is like the number one video game place. You have options, but GameStop's kind of the place. And the thing with this is, with video game retailers in general, there's so much of just parents not reading the warning labels for why a game is rated mature or whatever, and then they just piss and moan to the cashiers like it's their fault that they don't know how to fucking read like the one letter on the box. So I will say this regarding preventing angry parents. Like, I didn't know about this, even though it was literally written right in front of me. I'm mad that we didn't get a physical copy of Fatal Frame 5, but like, I think I'm starting to see why, because each Fatal Frame game has its own motif or setting that kind of makes it its own thing. In Fatal Frame 1, ropes were kind of everywhere. It was just a thing. It involved how people were sacrificed for this ritual or whatever, this like ancient Shinto ritual. I don't know if it was real or not, but they said Shinto. In Fatal Frame 2, it was butterflies and twins. They pushed those really hard. In Fatal Frame 3, it was dreams, because the dungeons actually take place in like a dream manner, which is freaking creepy. Fatal Frame 4, you were in a mental hospital the whole time, so there were things related to that kind of stuff around, and just everything was uncomfortable. Well, with Fatal Frame 5, the motif is suicide, and they talk about it a lot. And there's lots of journal entries about it, how people are drawn to this place to end their own lives. You see it happen sometimes.
Is that like related to that like woods where people like commit suicide in Japan?
It could be. I mean, this is Mount Hikami. I don't even know if that's a real place, but it's a mountain. But like, yeah, there is real life woods in Japan where people go to kill themselves. So I maybe was inspired by that. But yeah, like they talk about suicide a lot. And the thing is, with video games, I've seen all sorts of terrible subjects. There's mass murder constantly, because otherwise how can I hate the villain, am I right? But like, suicide isn't really discussed very much in video games, so seeing this much of it, just because I'm not used to it, kind of has more of an effect than it may otherwise have had if other games dealt with it more.
Yeah, the game Sinemura kind of got me in the same way, because it's one of the very few video games that that and Metal Gear Solid 5 that actually talk about rape.
Yeah.
There are very few video games, very few, that actually talk about that. Given that it is an extremely uncomfortable subject to talk about, but it's explored a lot of times, a lot in books. And movies. In movies, it's in there quite a bit, but hardly ever in video games. So I think those are the only two games that I know of that even talk about it.
Far Cry 4.
I didn't know that about Far Cry 4.
I think it's 4, but like, it was one of the well, it might have been 3. It was one of the games where you're on an island with like your friends. So I forgot if it was 3 or 4, but like, they don't show it, but like, one of your friends definitely got raped. Like, you know what happened, and it's just like, oh man, like it's really uncomfortable. Like the guy who I think you like who hires you to do such and such a side quest or whatever, I think he like not so subtly hints that is going on while you're out, and it's just like and like when you finally save your friend, he's obviously traumatized.
It's probably Pagan Men in the fourth one, if I had to guess.
I don't know anybody's name, so maybe. But yeah, like, it was just like, oh, damn. Yeah.
Gross.
So on that note, what did you do this week, Vyse? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah.
I have played a little bit more of the Rise of the Tomb Raider. I'm finally almost done that game. It's kind of been an albatross for me because like I'm dedicated to beating it, but like I said, I'm not big on the story. Actually, I've gotten to the point where I don't even listen to the audio logs anymore, and I never do that. I never do that. But like the audio logs and like the documents that I've been finding, like really don't enrich the story at all. They're kind of boring. Yeah. So like. It's one of those games where I like the mechanics. I like going around and doing the tombs and things like that.
Like the Metroidvania type stuff with it.
Yeah, yeah. I like doing that stuff. I like exploring, but the themes, the characters, the storyline just aren't for me.
Do you think this game may have made you lose interest or still remain neutral about the movie that's going to be coming out?
Geez. I've long ago come to grips with the fact that video game movies are not good and will never be good, and I'm okay with it. Like, if by chance there's a random one that will be decent, I will happily watch it. I will, I mean, I can only think of two that I actually like. And one of them
Mortal Kombat 2.
The original Mortal Kombat is like the Citizen Kane of video game movies.
Mortal Kombat, I will say, Mortal Kombat Annihilation I like, but it is schlock.
Super Mario Brothers I like, but is also garbage. Yeah. I mean, I like it because it's garbage.
That's kind of why I like Mortal Kombat Annihilation. It's so dumb.
And it has nothing to do with the source material. It's just one of those things. I mean, I like bad movies for the sake of badness, but like actual like represents the medium well. Mortal Kombat is about it. Maybe the first Silent Hill.
I was just gonna say the first Silent Hill is probably as close as it's gonna get. Mortal Kombat was really basic, which is why you could argue it was closer. Silent Hill deviated from the plot a little bit, but aesthetic, like the visual aesthetic, they could not have possibly done a better job. Like that was unbelievable.
There are quite a few movies out there, video game movies, that are boring, which is the worst type of movie. I mean, I'd rather watch a bad movie or a really good movie than a boring one.
Yeah.
And there are several of those that have come out recently, like Prince of Persia, Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, I heard those
Max
were just
Payne.
nothing. I don't even like. I don't think I heard anything about Assassin's
Hitman.
Creed after like day one. Like that movie was dropped so fast.
There's World of Warcraft. I mean, I guess maybe if you're a World of Warcraft fan, that movie was supposed to be good.
Pretty good. I thought that was really good.
Warcraft?
If you were
Wasn't
into
it just called Warcraft?
Lore.
I think it was.
Because
Yes,
the thing with Warcraft is I actively avoided it because I figured it would be about World of Warcraft, but apparently it was like...
It was the first game.
Yeah, it was knowledge of the first game to the point where like even someone like me who actually played it like wouldn't follow a lot of it. It was like
it was really deep lore to the point where few people could follow it.
Yeah, and the thing was though, some people would have loved that, but it was advertised as this basic ass like James Cameron's Avatar style movie. Like could orcs and humans really get along? And apparently it was just like no, it was deep lore. So like. Who was that trailer for anyway? Like random people.
Who's the movie for?
Like random people who see that movie, you could be like, I have no idea what's going on. I don't even know what Azeroth is.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe that's good if you are deep set in the lore of that kind of stuff. But I am not, so it would be totally lost on me.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just one of those things.
My girlfriend followed along with it, and she knows nothing about Warcraft.
Okay,
there you go.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, so maybe that one's pretty decent, but I like I said, video games are fun because they're fun to play.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. They're not easy to adapt.
I will say that the bigger problem is more so that, like you said, they're hard to adapt, and just that people try to adapt the wrong parts. They try to adapt the gameplay parts instead of just the story parts.
Yeah, in Silent Hill. Well, I was going to say in Silent Hill Revelation, there's this weird part that's a shout out to the game, but for no reason whatsoever. Like, Vyse, I know you did. Pyro, did you play Silent Hill 3?
No, I haven't played any of them. I really haven't played any of them.
Okay. Well, real quick, I mean, Vyse. Well, when we were playing 3, right? You remember, and Pyro, this will be easy enough to follow. But there's a part where you're in an amusement park. That's like one of the last dungeons, like the second to last dungeon. And there's this one puzzle where there are these 2 statues of Snow White and of Cinderella, and they're each missing a piece. So you wander through the dungeon until you find the slipper and the apple, right? And you put them under places in the statue because that's how these Silent Hill games work. You put the things in the things and you solve these really weird esoteric puzzles that make no
basically keys, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Resident Evil. The puzzles make no goddamn sense in real life, but I mean, it's a video game. But like in Silent Hill Revelation, the second Silent Hill movie, there's a part where
Revelatons.
That's Resident Evil. There's a part in where Heather is in a motel talking to, I forgot who, probably Vincent or something, and you see, like, I think it was red for, like, visual effect, but it was, like, the slipper for Cinderella, and it's just randomly in the hotel room, and it's like, is that a nod to the puzzle? But she doesn't take it, and it doesn't come up ever, so it's like, there's just a weird shoe here that we're just not going to talk about. So people who play the games are like, well, why did you bother? And people who didn't were like, why is there this one red shoe just chilling here? So like, talk about a poor part to adapt.
This reminds me of a little bit of a tangent. So you know how I was mentioning that board game I played that was like the zombies in the 1990s? They had a really funny reference. So it's about, obviously, an experiment's gone wrong. And there is a picture in both, like, 2 places you go to of, like, a side view of an umbrella.
Okay.
That's red and white.
Umbrella Corporation.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. But it's like, you know how the Umbrella Corporation for the games is the top view of the umbrella? You could say. It's the side view of it. So
that's
I thought that was
funny.
really...
That's cute.
Really,
yeah.
So anyway, that's the tangent.
Actually,
So,
real quick, regarding an umbrella tangent... I had taken a look at the Killer 7 comic books a while back, and you know how Killer 7 was partly made by Shinji Mikami?
Sure.
There's nothing that I'm aware of that really calls out to Resident Evil in the game, but in the comic book, there's, like, an umbrella logo shows up, like, once. And I was like, what?
So, I actually thought that the original Tomb Raider movie with Angelina Jolie was pretty decent.
It's all right.
So the second one's is very boring, but the first one's pretty good. Now, I think that is one of the few games that could easily be a movie because it's kind of based off of movies.
Well, it's
right?
Indiana Jones.
Yeah, exactly. Like adventure movies inspired, Tomb Raider. So I mean, I'm not really. I don't have any faith that they will make a good one.
Yeah.
But I believe it if it does happen. So let's just say that. Now it would be awesome if there were a really good Uncharted movie too. I would love that, but I'm not.
They're apparently still making one, but I don't think it's gonna be good.
I was really fucking surprised about the Castlevania TV show because it was a lot better than it had any right to be. In fact, I would say that it was probably the best video game adaptation in a really long time. And I actually really loved it. And in fact, it just enriches the lore of the TV show and doesn't mess with it really. So it was a lot of fun. But anyway, I'm getting through that. Rise of the Tomb Raider. Hopefully, I can move on to something else pretty soon. I would love to play the new Uncharted game because I was a big fan of Chloe back in Uncharted 2. So
yeah, I want to play that too. Yeah,
I would really love to play the new game because I love the Uncharted games. I've played them all except for the Vita one. So I'm excited to play that. But I also played more of Metroid Return of Samus. First of all, I wanted to make a reference to your joke, Lotus, in the last episode, in that when I was at the Nintendo World Store, I bought the deluxe version, the limited edition version with the soundtrack. But I had already had it on order from Amazon. The regular
so you had to
version.
Return of Samus.
Yeah, so that's exactly right.
It's like lightning returns.
Amazon sent me an email that says your return of Metroid Samus returns. So.
Yeah. So now, if someone were in the Nintendo World, wait, you picked up a physical copy and you returned it on Amazon.
Correct.
Okay, so if somebody started to watch you do that and then left the room and then came back in, it would be the return of Samus Returns.
Yes.
Or no, return to the return of Samus Returns.
No, keep going, please.
The return of Samus.
Okay.
Return to the 2 + 2 + 1 + 1.
So anyway, I played a little bit of that, and so I think it's a decent game. It's not fantastic so far. It reminds me a lot of Shadow Complex, ironically. So Shadow Complex was a game made during a drought of Metroid games. It was an Xbox Live arcade game, first and foremost, and then kind of got a PC port later after a long, long time. And it's actually one of the best Metroidvanias out there. I love playing that. It has some like 3D elements, despite being a 2D game.
Yeah.
In gameplay style, there are some things that you can aim into and out of the screen. But it feels kind of like that with the way that you aim in Metroid Return of Samus. I like it. It's a little on the easy side in terms of how how you're able to reveal the secrets. And it also, I don't think it has enough bad guy variety. It doesn't have enough enemy variety. I've been fighting the same 2 enemies for a really long time in the game, and it's kind of disappointing in that respect. Otherwise, it doesn't really feel like Metroid 2, which I find very surprising. Usually Nintendo is really good at this kind of stuff. I actually think AM2R encapsulates the game, the feel of the original game better.
Well, the big thing I heard about the official remake was that it really pushes using your melee to counter enemy attacks, and that just doesn't feel like Metroid, even if it's a cool mechanic.
I don't really mind that. I don't mind extra mechanics and things like that, but the environments don't feel like the original game. So kind of the original Game Boy game kind of hit home that the isolation of the environments that you were in. And AM2R is really good at kind of emphasizing that. There are a lot of abandoned places in the game, and this kind of just seems like it's more teeming with life, and like the backgrounds are pretty fancy and things like that, and well detailed. And I'm like, that's not kind of what the original game was going for. They kind of like, despite technical limitations, that really conveyed a sense of space well, and a sense of how your mindset, and this game doesn't really have that. So it's good, but I'm going to continue on with it. But it's probably not going to be my favorite Metroid game for sure. I mean, it's hard to beat the Prime games and Super Metroid, obviously.
Oh,
but
speaking of which, by the way, you might know this already because this follows standard Metroid conventions and not the Prime ones, but you do not get any reward for getting 100% of the items. Like, the endings are based on time.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty normal in Metroid games. Yeah. So
because I think Prime, they dropped the time requirement because that's too much.
Yeah, I mean, I never really cared about that ending, those kind of endings. I'm more, I would rather explore the game than play it quickly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I will continue playing on those and give status updates on those in coming
Samus updates.
Yeah. And I did want to also talk quickly about the M2 shooting collection that was released in Japan. So there are 2 games in it so far. One of them is Battle Garrega, which is I believe by a company called Rising or Aiding. It depends on how far in that company's life. It went by a bunch of different names, but I believe it's Rising. And that was one of the Tau Plan successors. and it was kind of a shmup company that before Cave became prominent, which is where a lot of the Tau Plan developers went to eventually. And so they also released Dangun Feveron, which is one of Cave's very first games. And the Battle Garrega had a port to the Saturn that was very good, and Dangun Feveron had never had a console port. So it was really cool when these both came out because they were, first of all, arcade perfect, and you could also choose. They had a whole slew of special features, and M2, of course, has some of the best, probably the best official emulation company there is. They're really great at emulating systems, arcade, everything. And so I was excited, and I was going to get a Japanese account for PSN finally in order to get these.
It's really easy to do.
I know it's easy, but now I have less of an incentive to do it because they just announced English releases.
Oh, okay, all right.
So I'm very happy. They'll probably be cheaper, which is another good thing.
And as an added bonus, you won't have to pay a middleman fee to purchase Japanese PSN points.
Yeah, that was always part of it. I kind of never really wanted to buy $100 worth of PSN points.
That's the thing. If you buy $100 worth of
points.
PSN points, you're gonna have to pay like $105 or $110 for them. Because you
at least, yeah. So I'm glad they're coming over. I was thinking about buying, doing a Japanese account for these two specifically, and then I was gonna buy some PS1 games on PS3 with those points as well.
Yeah.
But it turns out that I probably won't need to do either for a number of reasons. But that's actually what I'm going to allude to here. So when we went to Classic Game Junkie this week, I picked up a couple things. One of them was a GameCube game that I've long been trying to acquire. And it was a Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2 Plus, which is one of the rarer games for the system because it's an updated version of Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2. And so it has more levels and more missions than the original 1 and 2. So it's the most updated version before they stopped supporting the game. So I'm kind of excited to play that. After I kind of want to go through the Phantasy Star games and then eventually to the Phantasy Star Online games.
I would like to play the Phantasy Star ones.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very interested because I'm a big Sega fan in general.
I've had fun with the Phantasy Star Online games. I used to play Blueburst, I think.
Yeah, that's the PC version.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I also have Episode 3, which is the card game.
The Card Revolution. I never played the Phantasy Star games growing up except for online. I played a little bit of the Dreamcast version at my friend's place when I was in probably middle school or whatever, and I just really took a liking to it, but never played much past that point, so I was overjoyed when it came out on the GameCube. But for regular Phantasy Star, one thing that's cool is if you don't have the games on the Genesis, and the very first one on the Master System, then on Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection for the PS3 and 360, it's like $10 to $13 now, probably. They have Phantasy Star 2, 3, and 4 just ready to play. And some games... I
think one's on there.
One's on there, yeah. Some games you have to unlock by getting X number of points in level 1 or whatever. So to unlock Phantasy Star 1, all you have to do is have 2 controllers hooked up and beat level 1, like Emerald Hill Zone of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, with 2 players. That's all you have to do. Yeah, so at the time I only had one PS3 controller, so I couldn't even do this. So one day I was I had Mr. Ryu over, and I was like, hey, when you come over, could you bring a PS3 controller? He's like, okay. So he just plugs it in. I beat level 1 of Sonic, and it's just bloop, you got Phantasy Star Online. It's like, really? That was it? I'm yup. That's all you had to do.
One of these days when I can convince myself to do it, I'd like to LP those games. I mean, there are some fan translations that kind of clean up the translations of those games because back then they kind of just did whatever.
Yeah.
But they make them more accurate, and also make the timeline more succinct. So there are some references to the first game in later games, and they're kind of all jumbled up if you play the official versions. Things, names changed from translation to translation, that kind of thing. So you don't realize they're making a reference.
Okay.
There are a couple characters that carry over, that kind of thing. So I kind of want to play like the fan translations and also play it with Phantasy Star was also one of those games that had a special FX chip soundtrack if you had that capability on the Sega Master System. So I do have FM synth capabilities now as well with the power base converter thing.
And I'm assuming you would get that anyway through the PS3 version too, right?
No.
Really?
So yeah, the US ROM does not have that FM synth ability because it really didn't have they didn't have that FM synthesis add-on in the United States to begin with.
Okay.
So they kind of took it out when they brought the ROM over to here. So they're for a long time, most official emulators didn't even give you the option for it.
So the cartridge is where it's at?
Actually, you need a Japanese ROM and then fan translated. In order to play it with that soundtrack. So, yeah, it's a lot of hoops, but I think it'll be worth it if I want to play it correctly. So I also picked up 2 of the Trauma Center games for the Wii. I picked up Second Opinion, which is a remake of the original Trauma Center on the DS, and New Blood, which is the second game on the Wii. There's also a third game, I believe, as well, and a second game on the DS. So I reignited my interest in playing those games when we had a conversation earlier this week, Lotus, and I kind of just wanted to get them because they're like Wii games that like nobody cares about anymore, but probably people will eventually start caring about them again. So they're fun. Certainly standout games for the system amongst a sea of shovelware, for sure. But I also picked up a PlayStation, original PlayStation system, which we're getting modded. You're getting your system modded, and I'm getting my system modded in order to take advantage of a PSIO.
Yes.
So I'm excited for this because I'm a pretty big proponent of ROM carts and things like that to play like fan translations and stuff like that on real hardware, and I can't wait in order to get mine. I actually had one in previous years, but I had a PSIO, but some kerfuffle there with the guy that I use for my modding service and stuff has rendered my system isolated from me, and I can't get it. So I'm unfortunately going to have to buy another. So having said that, I'm excited to play some of the really great rarities for that system. As well as playing some of the translated ROMs or ISOs that have come out recently, like Kingsfield 1, and a few other games that'll be a lot of fun. So, having said that, we can move on to questions.
Okay, so the first one's a quickie, I think. Lazrule asks, when will you invite DarkSydePhil to guest on the show?
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, I don't even know who that is either.
I'm the only one. All right, DarkSydePhil. Have you heard of DSP? Because that's his sort of acronym.
Nope.
That doesn't help. All right, he's a YouTuber who kind of got big. I don't know why he got big, but it might be for this reason. But the reason I've heard of him is he's the kind of guy who plays games on YouTube really poorly, but then complains about the game itself, it's the game's fault that I don't know what I'm doing, that kind of thing. Sure. So he gets a whole lot of flack, but he has that kind of following though for the people who are into that kind of thing.
I'm guessing this is in kind of reference to the way you play your games, Lotus.
Not really.
No.
I don't blame the game when it's clearly my fault. And I usually use a walkthrough for my Let's Plays anyway, so I'm not wandering around in circles forever because that's just an editing nightmare. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Lazarus just dicking around because that's what he does.
Okay.
But it's a when question, but I'm probably gonna answer that with no.
So here's the thing regarding guests here. I'm very open to having guests on the show. I mean, there's no secret here. We have guests on all the time. Especially if they're friends of ours. So, and in fact, we have fans of the show. We have Dracologist, who is kind of an extended member of the show now. And he started off as a fan. I mean, we're definitely willing to have people on. So,
yep.
But I don't know. I don't know this guy, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where he's a big YouTuber, so I'm not gonna be able to go hey buddy, want to come on my podcast, and be like, who are you? That kind of thing.
Yeah. It may be something if we wanted a bump in viewership, might be something that something that we might want to play around with in the future or something like that. But I don't know. I'm kind of fun doing what we do.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So the other question, because this is one we could actually properly answer, I think. Diana Gohan asks, do you guys have a favorite or least favorite experience going to or being a guest at a convention?
So, I guess the least favorite thing about conventions right now is trying to go to them.
Yeah. I think all conventions are starting to suck, basically.
Yeah, and it's really a big shame because we love MagFest. It's like if we could encapsulate what we like about being friends with each other into a convention, the closest thing would be MagFest.
Yeah,
and it's a shame that it's a blessing and a curse that it's becoming so popular that people from all over the country and all over the world are starting to want to come to it.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not it's bad because it's popular, we're being hipsters. The problem is, it sucks to register for it. Yeah, because trying to get tickets sucks now because they're hey guys, tickets are up, but because it's so popular, everyone jumps on them, and by the time you blink, it's over and you missed your chance.
I mean, this is how it started. The beginning of the end of us not going to PAX East anymore.
Yep. Yeah, I went
to PAX
2 or 3 times, and then it was just
every year.
Nope. Yeah.
We went to PAX East every year, and then it was handled poorly 3 years in a row. And
I wouldn't say handled poorly; it just became impossible to get tickets.
Yeah, that's what I meant by that. It's just it's just like every other thing that I want online these days. Everything is super limited. I have to be there at the right time. It's like the SNES Classic right now. It's like the NES Classic was.
Yeah.
It's just
here it is. It's cool. You will like it, but good luck getting it.
Man, why do I have to wait in line in real life online in order to do things now? While I'm at work. This is completely ridiculous. This recent trend of things, and I give credit to the MagFest team for trying to cope with it.
Yeah, they are dealing with this in the best way they know how. To be fair, because last year sucked regarding getting a hotel room. We all did it without trouble, so it didn't suck for us. But that's because we all happened to be on our computers with our fingers on the button when we got the email. You could book now. We were so many people missed their chance.
But this is the real problem with conventions these days. Now, as a poor fan experience, I mean, maybe Con Bravo. I mean, when we went to Con Bravo, is probably it wasn't a bad experience. It just wasn't our favorite thing. It was just one of those things.
Yeah, I rather enjoyed it for what it was, but the thing is, I can't even judge it in that way because there are conventions near me that I would only go to for a few hours because I'm a dealer's room kind of guy. Like sometimes sometimes they don't have guests I'm interested in. Sometimes they don't have panels I'm interested in. That's cool. If you're into those guests and panels, go for it. But I'm usually there to see what kind of swag they got for sale. And there are places like Too Many Games or A Video Game Con, that's what it's called, that are like an hour for me. And it's like, you know what? I'll go there. I'm there. I walk around, I have fun for an afternoon, I go home. Con Bravo, I feel, was one of those places. If I lived near there, I would totally go there every year.
Sure.
But for a 12-hour drive, like,
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
So I went to Too Many Games one year, and it was at a Reading flea market rather than the Philadelphia Convention Expo Center that it's at right now.
This must have been a while back then.
It was a long time ago. It was back in college.
Okay.
It was probably back in 2008 or 9 or so, and it was probably 2008, if I had to guess. So when I went there, somebody keyed my car and flattened two of my tires.
Oh, I remember
shit.
I remember you mentioned that. I don't think I
Yeah.
knew that it was at Too Many Games, but I remember you mentioned that like in college. So like I must have known you at that time.
Yeah, it fucking sucked.
It must have been our 5th year of college then. It must have been the graduate year because like I didn't know you before then. Well, it could have been senior year actually. It could have been. But in any case, yeah, that must have been late college then because I actually knew about it when it happened. I just didn't know what the context was.
Yeah, no, it was probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me at a convention.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It was awful, and you know, I don't know what I did to deserve it, but
Actually,
probably didn't.
if
somebody being an asshole to me.
If we want to go into bullshit like that wasn't part of the con experience, then I have one. There was one year at Otakon, I don't remember what year, but either my
Vyse didn't get his turn.
there was that. There's that whole in joke, but that wasn't really my problem.
No, it was very much mine.
I don't know what you're talking about, but no. This was a different Otakon where I don't know if my wallet somehow fell out of my pocket because I had like pants with like loose pockets or whatever, or if someone outright pickpocketed me. I still don't know to this day. But I was walking around the dealer's room and my wallet was gone. So the good news is it went nearly as well as it could have gone because my wallet was in the lost and found. Somebody put it there. Might have even been the person who stole it in the first place, assuming it was stolen. But my wallet was in the lost and found. It did have all of my cards, my driver's license, everything like that, but the cash was missing. And I didn't have that much cash. Like I had like, you know how sometimes people bring like extra cash because they know they're gonna be spending a lot at a con.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Extra for me at Otakon was like maybe like $100 or something. That's like a lot, but like that could have been worse. It's not like this is my favorite con, I'm spending hundreds of dollars. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
So like
having to get all new credit cards and a driver's license and all that.
That
shit
would have
was
been
like
a
the
bitch.
worst.
Yeah, that did not happen. Although to play it safe, I did have my credit card shut down and I got a new one issued.
Sure.
But that was actually a really easy process. As it happened, the type of bank, like the company bank that I go to, was literally across the street from the convention center.
That's good.
Yeah, so yeah, it's not like, you know, I was in another country and I was in an American central bank. Like, what do? It was just like, that's the bank I use. I just walked over there, like, problem solved. So that was the best that a theft could have gone. Like, it sucked to lose my money, but like everything else was intact and it wasn't really that much money. The funny thing was, this was a little weird. Our friend Perry actually found someone else who lost their wallet, and this person actually lost...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this person actually lost their wallet because everything was inside it. So I don't know how this guy lost his. So and the best part is we were actually able to use the guy's information from what we got in his wallet to, like, not find him. We just kind of hung around at the Lost and Found until a guy who looked like the guy in the driver's license showed up. So it actually worked out. That was kind of cool.
Fair enough.
So, like, yay.
Well, having said that, I think that's a good summary of all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I think we should wrap up here.
Why?
So,
Yes.
That's the show for this week. We want to thank our fans who contributed questions. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Thursdays on our sister podcast, Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as VyseTheBold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, and Twitter.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, and even selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, then maybe consider swinging by my Patreon, which is patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And I'm PyroJackFrost.
Yeah. Cheers.
Until next time,
Catch you on
everyone.
Thursday.
Bye, everyone.